Only one of them.
I think everybody's here that's gonna
That thing working
be
the
here,
phone
so
too, Mark?
we'll get started where we can get out.
This does.
You need a minute, Greg?
I mean, probably some attachments would make it.
First order of business to review the agenda. One revision to the agenda is under new business. We do have a subdivision to review, and Matt will get us up to speed on that at the appropriate time. Any other changes? Assume everyone has read over the May 30th minutes. Any changes? Not approve the motion, entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Mr. Tate?
Just a few quick comments. Y'all, please help refresh my memory, but if my memory serves me correctly, I think the next topic is the sign ordinance. And then after that, it is the high impact ordinance. Is that correct?
Sure.
And then after that, I don't think we have anything. And, I'd like to get y'all's feedback real quick. What I would like to do is take to the commissioners the idea of letting the planning board review all of the real property, I'm saying real property, land and buildings that Macon County owns. Let y'all see if we have any surplus, if we have any property that might be usable, what it might be usable for. And basically just take a look at our whole pocket property. See if we've got too much, too little, get y'all's feedback on it. I know I've just identified personally a couple parcels out there that the county owns that I don't think the county necessarily needs, and I don't see them needing it in the next 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years personally. Y'all may have a different idea, but if y'all think I might be apt to it, I would like to ask the board commissioners consensus to ask y'all to do it. Any thoughts?
I think the county needs to do it. If it's a question to me, there's some group that'd be more acquainted with it, or better just do that quicker than we can.
I don't know anybody that's out there, and I've thought about that. I've thought about asking Jack Horton to do it, and he stays so busy with many things, I just don't know. I'm just thinking, what a better group to do it than the actual planning board.
You could
Something
probably
besides
get,
doing some reviewing ordinances.
you could probably get better people to do it, but they'd cost you a lot more.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, with the, he can double our pay, I guess, still come out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of common sense and ideological ideas that come off this board as I'm just sitting and being a sponge and listening to y'all. I would like to hear all of them, maybe some of this property that we do own, see if the best thing is for the county to get rid of it. Take the ideas back to it and back to the board of commissioners and see what happens.
What about maybe potential future interest in on that?
That's what I think this board looks at, yeah. Whether if it's attached, say we've got 5 acres that's nothing's on it, it's attached to potential school property, maybe this board sees that, well, maybe we need to keep it because the school might expand, or there might be a baseball field or a playground or something down the road. But I know, for example, there's one on, I believe it's on Saunders Road, which is, I believe, where Clark County is. It's just, in my opinion, it's just sitting there, and I don't see the county doing anything.
Well, they bought that, that's where the recycle.
Well, it's gonna go, yeah. But, you know, why does the county, in my opinion, why does the county hold on to it when we can potentially sell it, get that income, and do something beneficial with it, or give it back to the community, or, and then we're also losing the tax base off of it as well. And if somebody else owned it, it's a tax revenue. Anyway, I just thought we could probably get you on board. Again, if the commissioners are in agreement with it, you get you on board to get with Lightner and get a list of all our properties, and we'll start looking at what they're used for, maybe do a little history on it. Okay. Again, that's just my thought. I don't have consensus on our board by any means.
Do you think that is a priority over some of these other items?
I don't. I was just looking at something that might be something different from what y'all's normal tasks are.
What about the floodplain ordinance that we're working on for 4 months?
It'll come back up in July. We're going to get it till state, please correct me if I'm wrong, the the state ends in June, when their session ends, and if nothing's happened by June, y'all will take action, or we'll take action on it. And, but we'll give it until the end of the month.
So it's not off the
So
table.
it's not off the table. If nothing happens by the end of this month, you'll see it back.
And you're talking about that 612.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in committee.
Until they get to the session.
Do you think with, in light of that, and in reviewing those parcels that the county owns, I think it would be good if we put something together that could be, since it is dealing with the future, and to put it into the comprehensive plan that this board passed, and amend that plan to include that in it. And that way, it's not a policy document, it's a non-binding document, it's just merely there for a blueprint that commission boards now and boards in the future can look to for guidance in making their decisions. I think that would be a good vehicle to take that.
I agree, and again, I would like y'all's input on this. In my opinion, that's planning. It's not only looking at tomorrow, today, it's looking at 10 years down the road of what's going to happen. I think it would be a good thought to have us look at what we own. I mean, even during the discussion of this last questions of the purchase of Parker Meadows for these athletic builds, there was discussion, well, why don't we look at other county properties? There just never was anything brought before us that had the list of all the county properties that might be beneficial for them. So I think it's time, and nobody, as far as I know, in the county is doing that or has done that at any time.
And that,
Since I've been county planning
it's the same
It's not
thing,
been
a
looked
logical place to put
like
that.
Right. Yes, yeah, that would be an appropriate place to put it, I think.
One needs to feed off the other. As far as what future use you have, and not see beneficial problems.
I personally would love to hear y'all hash it out. It sounds like y'all might be agreeable with that. I'm gonna take it at our July meeting and ask the board to assess this task job members. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I think everyone has a copy of the planning board mission statement. To develop and advocate public policy procedures, preserve the integrity of the Mount heritage, the beauty and tranquility of the community, as well as our natural environment, for the benefit of current population as well as future generations, while sustaining economic vitality and social welfare of our citizens. Whatever we are reviewing, I think it's important that we remember what our mission statement is. At this point, we open the floor for any public comment.
Just watching the day now.
With that being said, I don't think we have any unfinished business. New business?
Quickly, hopefully, review the subdivision. It's called the Ridges of Highlands. It's the old historic Highlands. It's up Buck Creek. Derek, you might have looked at that one.
Have to get you live.
What I printed off is basically phase one. What you can see here is the developer bought the entire tract. It's basically highlighted in yellow. Everything that's sold was sold before it went into foreclosure and he bought it from the bank. So what he's wanting to do with the sheet that I handed out is phase one is going to be these lots here and create a common space in here. And then he's going to have a future unknown phase up in here. And then this parcel here is going to be future along with these two down here. the homeowners association, road maintenance agreement, all that is gonna be through the existing subdivision. They're just gonna change the names back to the new subdivision, and hopefully get away from the historic Highlands name, trying to revitalize it. Talking with the developer, I made a few recommendations that if it was to be a conditional approval now, that he would be willing to do. One was to rewrite the HOA to include the road maintenance agreement. He's submitted that. It just has to be renamed to include the new subdivision. He has to pay preliminary and final review fees, and then of course the surveyor is going to have to submit a plat with road maintenance language. Everything else meets the ordinance. We had the fire marshal go up and look at it. The roads are, I think, 14-foot wide roads, but the nice thing about this is they made a gravel road right in here to where you can come up and loop all this and come back down this way. So you can, in an emergency situation, you can make it a one-way road. Pretty easy. And that's pretty much it.
So Jimmy Teens had no questions about the 20-foot limit?
So you didn't have any problem with it.
Anybody else have any questions? So what we'd be looking for is a motion for preliminary approval with the developer to provide items that you noted.
We can do preliminary approval on that, and then technically it's supposed to come back to the board, but you can also give me approval to go ahead and file.
What are the items?
File this as phase one.
What are the items that are missing?
He has to rewrite the existing homeowners association, the new subdivision name, pay a couple of fees, and then resubmit the plat.
And the homeowner association problem was, no road maintenance in it?
It had the road maintenance in it, but it was named under the old subdivision name, so we just had to make everything reconcile.
So the road, the maintenance requirements not changing?
No.
It was okay. I was gonna ask if the existing law owners would agree to it, but they don't have to.
No, all it's doing is name change for the subdivision.
So it sounds like those will be considered minor changes, yeah.
Could we not approve it and subject to him getting those items to you, and then if he done
I think if he doesn't get it, you can bring it back to us or have a special meeting.
it, that's a motion we do that. Approve it, subject to him getting those items.
I'll second that motion.
And with Matt having the authority to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
The subdivision ordinance is on the commission.
For July the 9th. July the 9th, we'll have a public hearing on the subdivision ordinance.
That's pretty much it.
They basically take public opinion on it, basically it's time for the public to say what they speak. They might potentially vote on it, they might not, it just depends on what kind of people come in.
I don't think that there was an outcry, public comment.
I don't think there's going to be. I mean, we fixed it. We didn't hurt it. I think.
Is there a link for people can read the changes to the subdivision ordinance?
I will make a link and email it to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Next item under new business is have a discussion about the existing sign ordinance. That is based on the commissioners asking us to review that ordinance. I think Matt has some preliminary information that he wants to share with us in regards to our current ordinance, and I think we're maybe going to hear a little bit about what the town ordinance contains as well.
I've got a short little slideshow. Everybody see all right? What we did, we just went out and looked at primarily 441, the Highland Road, high traffic areas. Just said a look and said, do we need a sign ordinance? And if we do, why or why not? First of all, we went down Georgia Road and we looked and talked to signs. It's not a matter of how many signs we see, it's actually really a matter of how many signs there actually are. This picture right here actually contains 17 signs. Your eyes don't pick them up, you just get to looking. Is this a reasonable use of signs? In my opinion, it is. Back when Derek and I first left, or I first started having a look at it, all these signs were down along the Georgia Road, back in the sweepstake days, back when everybody had temporary signs. So there's good places and there's not so good places to put signs. Is this sign in a questionable location? Go either way. Probably not. It's not. You can see by the type of vehicle behind it, as it comes around, it's not going to affect your vision sign because of the size of the sign. Now, if that sign was 3 times the size, I'll show you a picture later on that sort of depicts what I'm talking about. But it's all about the size of the sign and the location of the sign.
Is this an appropriate time to ask questions as we're going through the slides, or should I just keep shut?
Annoying people have good comments.
Be in the right of way.
Technically, that sign is in the right of way. Okay. On 441 South. The right of way is somewhere back along the bank in here.
And before, the temporary signs were outside of the right of way.
That's
probably off the right of way.
These are off the right of way. To the top of the bank was the right of way.
Okay.
Usually those power poles will mark the right of way.
Yeah, power company generally wants to be a foot behind the right of way mark.
The only issue you had here was the old school road, which I don't think it was dedicated to DOT, but it was private.
Other thing about the sign that we were looking at, to flip back a little forward, I guess, one, from safety perspective, if somebody lost control, ran over that, it ain't gonna hurt anybody. It's not like it's a concrete post or power pole or something. So that's, the state probably would object to that.
That probably
Safety
won't because of the height.
Well, also the
Size.
safety perspective, it's just on wires,
Yeah, it's just, what it is a folded sign.
plywood.
But the state law says they can't put it there, and if the state wants to come down and make them do it, they could.
The state, right now, currently the state of the county can make them move that sign.
I've seen them do it with another business right down the road from that right there. They put them up and they take them down, right down the road from that business right there.
Which business?
Produce place down the road.
John Sherrill's produce place. Okay. You're gonna have signs, 95% of people want a light sign. Most of the time when you have signs of electricity, you have illegal electrical outlets or the use of extension cords. You can see here, there's 2 outlets, no big deal. You have an extension cord cut off running up to it. Code violation. Safety issue. Now let's look at line of sight. This is the same business on 441. You can see we just looked at this sign here. And I just picked this place because there's a lot of signs. Not that it's out of compliance or illegal or anything like that. It's just a place that says, wow, there's a lot of signs. See this car right here? I'm going to go through 3 or 4 slides and you'll think or see it progress up the highway.
Can I ask a question on this one?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Are the antique signs on the right of way?
You mean sign on the left?
Yeah, the antiques, the flags, are they in the right of way?
The flag pole is not, the flag itself is, and I think there's something that says it can't overhang on the right of way.
Okay.
But I think
Is the big
the
sign?
guardrail does not mark the right of way in this issue because like at John Sherrill's, the right of way is at the bottom of the line.
Yeah.
Is
So
the
that right
sign-
there is actually in the right of way.
The sculpture is probably this side and everything up through here.
Yeah.
All right, so the car's going to progress up the highway. You can see it's getting closer. It's getting closer. It's not really a good place to see the vehicle. So your natural instinct is, okay, I'm going to pull up a little more so I can see a little more. Well, you're going to look toward town and you're going to see this. You've got 2 more signs, another sign, a canoe with a flag through the canoe.
And they're both in the right of way.
All in the right of way. Thank you, Jimmy. So, naturally, you're a motorist at this business. and you pull up and you think, okay, I'm gonna slip out a little further. We go through it again. When is it safe? There's a car right here. Can't see the car. Still can't see the car. Still barely can see the car. Now I can see the car.
How does the current code ordinance, how does it apply to that? Relative to, I understand they're on the right of way, but are those signs legal? Is there anything, according to this ordinance, is all that legal?
If it's been permitted through the DOT, we consider it legal. Our ordinance says we don't allow signs within 20 feet of the edge of the pavement on the DOT right away.
What does the DOT say?
The DOT does not have enough people to enforce it. I talked to them yesterday. They've got one guy that does 4 counties, and the only time really the temporary signs that get moved out of the DOT right away is right before they mow. So, couple times a year.
So really, just going back to what Carl was asking, the state regulation, the DOT reg, doesn't allow this example to take place. They don't have the finances to employ someone to enforce the regulations.
Right. And basically, our ordinance is cooperating with them on that. Use the same language so that we can go do some of that.
So the county can enforce it for the state.
Well, I'm assuming like the little flag sign hanging over the guardrail is probably not permitted by the DOT or by the county anyway. What about like the big sign on the left behind that mailbox?
This one here?
No, the first one you started out with, that's like about 4 back. Looks like it's on 4x4, 6x6 right there. That breaks the 2x4 behind that mailbox. Is it permitted by you or the county?
That would be, as long as it's out of our right of way, we would permit that sign depending on the size of the building.
Size of the sign, huh?
All attached signage on the building goes by the signage.
So that's actually attached to the building?
This one here is not.
Okay.
This one would be, I think it's 150 square feet or something like that in there. Another thing is we don't allow portable signs. So a lot of people put these on posted changeable letter signs. For some reason, we don't allow it. I cannot tell you why. So it's obvious we have some safety issues. Is this a more reasonable line of sight? To me, it is. I would say your right of way is probably somewhere in here. It's pretty close to signs, or whether they're legal or not, they're a little safer.
Go back to that one, sorry, keep asking questions, but those signs are illegal.
These signs,
Yes.
we would consider those temporary signs because there's no way to. And yeah, I guess you could kind of consider them a permanent sign, but it'd be a tough argument.
Okay. And if it's a temporary sign, we allow temporary, this ordinance allows a temporary
For
sign.
so many days.
Okay. Does the state have any language, do they follow that same language?
What their language is, if it's in our right of way, we have the right to remove it, regardless of what it is.
Period.
And as a county, a arm of the state government, don't you still have the right to do it for them?
I don't know, we have to check.
Usually on that, the more stringent rule would apply.
And that's the way Michael Jones said, he usually goes whichever more stringent it's in his authority.
Yeah, I agree, but if it's in the right of way, well, that's what I'm asking, if the signs, which those are, and it was causing problems, safety issues, the county government, if I ain't mistaken, is a arm of the state government. And I feel like that y'all have the authority to go out there and say, look, this is in the right of way, the state law says you can't put it there, take it in.
We have to check the church.
like the permanent sign.
That's a good question.
Looks like it's on rock or something.
It is.
Okay, now, is it permitted by us?
That would be permitted through us.
And it's probably off the right of way.
Yes. Temporary sign, Highlands Road, got an issue. I did sort of set the picture up so that it would sort of block the road, you can pull it out, and still see.
Where's that one at?
BP station on Highlands Road,
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's a hard spot with it, without a sign.
without a sign because of the hill.
Yeah, empty sign.
That was in the right of way also.
That one is. Flashing and blinking signs, this is one of Mr. Rowland's favorites. We had this deal when the sweepstakes came through. First of all, it was a portable sign, so we had to say, move the portable sign. The complaint came because somebody had removed the standard light bulb that were on top with the LEDs or strobe bulbs in it. This was not lit, and this was at the Alto post office, what it did, the gas station there.
Yeah.
You can see those lights when you can make a curve up there at the Alto Fire Department. Blind. We had the same thing with the movable display sign. The next, I've seen it, and there's some language in there about vehicles and signs. If you read it close, it doesn't apply. One word is seriously. Good planning should not allow advertising on abandoned vehicles, especially where there's an average traffic count of 12 to 14,000 cars. And what the language in the most ordinances says is that the car cannot be abandoned and display the name of the business. This one's not displaying the name of the business, it's displaying the service.
Well, suppose the owner's driving that thing home every night, they're sitting there 12 hours a day or something. What was it?
I would, and legally, that would be fine. Most ordinances go with that. Like if you have you work for a postal service or something, like Outdoor 76, that's not an issue because it's licensed and it's mobile. This one has a place in Georgia, it's not been active in probably 15 years.
So that's what, overall.
Technically, I think it is.
Well, our ordinance, under the signs exempt, say signs on operational motor vehicles,
But read it, keep reading.
indicating the name of the business when the vehicle is not intended solely for a display of signs.
So this one doesn't name the business, or my point is that it's naming the service.
What's the definition of operating?
Well, that may be operating that had a tag and insurance.
It might operate, but it might not be legal.
No, I say all you gotta do is run out and buy a tag and insurance, it may be as good shape mechanically as,
It might be.
I doubt it, but it could be, but that's what I was trying to think through. Well, I agree, it doesn't set a very good image for us, but I don't make a big distinction between if it says Matt's Tattoo Parlor or just tattoo. I don't make a big deal between that personally. I mean, I think,
Well, that's something enforcement wise we probably need to look at.
I'm thinking it'd be a lot easier for you all to try to cover them in general terms.
It's an excellent loophole for these folks because if the tattoo parlor right behind it, you got Carl's Tattoo Parlor, you make a connection, you don't have to say all.
Carl, does that right there affect the health, safety, or welfare of any citizen in Macon County?
I think it can affect welfare.
I need a definition of welfare.
That depends on who you ask.
Yeah, it does, no. What is welfare?
You got a smart phone?
I've done asked 50 people that same question, and I got 50 different answers. No, I ain't got yours yet. Let's
Outdoor advertising in DOT. I'm gonna go over this real quick. The red lines are 64 west and 28 north out of town. That's scenic byways. That's something that has been an issue in the past. The yellow lines are the controlled route for 441. There's two different reasons we're bringing this out. Outdoor advertising control applies to off-premise advertising on all federally aided primary systems. These are things that are excluded and where we sort of come in. Directional or official signs and notices for like the brown signs for scenic or historic attractions. Signs advertising activities conducted on property upon which it is located. That's where we come in on the DOTs. They regulate off-premise advertising, which if you have a business here and you want to advertise 2 miles down the road, they're going to regulate that on certain highways. We will regulate it if it's on the premise of the highway or on their property. And then, of course, signs advertising sale of leased property, real estate signs. Outdoor advertising is prohibited along any designated scenic byway.
One of those in Macon County.
Scenic byway comes from the town of Highlands, down the Palisades Gorge.
28 north.
Wait a minute. It comes to the bridge at Bilo and then goes around 64 toward Murphy. All that scenic byway.
So the bypass is actually a section of bypass.
Big part of the bypass that goes through the rock cut up there. That one is called the Waterfall Byway.
Yes.
The other one is Indian Lake Scenic Byway. And that starts over US 129 and 28 near Tennessee. Comes through Rosman, terminates at the town of Franklin. That's the one that picks up 28 north, basically from the city limits of town all the way to the county line.
So, obviously the DOT's not enforcing that though. There's signs all scattered around everywhere.
Well, there are signs, they did an inventory on the signs before it became a scenic byway. And then if they don't permit any new signs. And an example of that a lot of people heard of was Chuck St. John's Fat Buddy sign. It was put down, Chuck owned a piece of property on 28 that his house was on. He put a sign down there that was on a trailer and it was mobile. We had 20 to 30 complaints on it. We contacted DOT, this is your, this is your scenic byway, your rules, go do it. And they ended up making him move it, going to pick it up. He ended up moving.
Okay, so what would you do if you and I bought a piece of property there and relocate or build a business there of some description? We don't have a sign.
If you have a business there, they will allow you to have signage on that property.
Whether you're on the scenic byway or not.
They won't let you have off-premise signage.
So like the motorcycle shop down there on 28, you can still have this sign.
Well, I was thinking more about, you got a greenfield site, you go out and build something new, you could put a sign on that property.
Or subdivision, sorry. That all goes through DOT. Sometimes it can get, it has to be on site. You know, like, for example, going up 28 toward Mason Branch. There's a subdivision went defunct in there. Well, they sold the rights to the sign to another subdivision. Now these people bought the property, wanting to sell land on it, and can't get road sign because it's not attached to the property. It's on the other side of the road, but they won't put the sign.
So
But that's all state issues.
it's gonna sound like I'm trying to set you up, but I'm really not. All those photographs you showed us aren't allowed according to our ordinance.
That's correct.
And I assume those signs are probably still there when I go home today. So we have the ordinance, but we're not enforcing it?
What we had a paid guy that did it full time, 4 days yards. And that was all he did was sign enforcement, all day, every day.
Looks like a full-time job.
And it's a nasty job. Because by that ordinance, you're talking yard sale signs, vacation Bible school signs, you're talking flea market signs, fundraiser signs. And the guy took his job serious.
Now, this ordinance that we're looking at here, this was adopted in 95.
95. There's no provisions for religion, nonprofits, anything like that.
So why was this adopted in 95? What was the need then?
Did the planning board do this in 95?
Well, yeah, it was the planning board. I come on right after this thing was done. And I always thought somebody on there had a 50 about sign. I don't know. It never did make too much sense. whatever reason it got that good place.
And I think it's been revised a couple of times over the years, not significantly. Good anymore.
No, I don't think it's been changed before.
That was a very good presentation.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. That was very good, very informative.
I have a call.
We'll get you a bill for
I didn't want to rub it. Yes, ma'am.
Down on the Georgia Road,
Uh-huh.
I own a log building there in the last turn. And I had a sign put up there, which I thought was off the right of way, 4 by 8. But I had a 10 by 10 drove into, dug and put into the ground. The sign was on. They came through and they cut my post off the top of the ground.
They be a mistake.
DOT.
They cut mine off because about that much of the sign was in the right of way.
Is that the part that hangs over or the post?
The post was, well, I had a post up on my
Oh,
part.
you had two posts, I got you.
Post out here and I had a 4 by 8 sign on it. And they literally took my sign, moved it back and nailed it back on that one post and cut my post down and you ran and look at it. I fought with them for years over signs. And we put this property down through there and we could put a 4 by 4 up, but not a 4 by 8 piece of plywood.
So that sign wasn't permitted.
It was permitted. Because they didn't permit them back before, a while back. I finally had to get one, but they cut the sign down.
Does,
So how do you decide whether you need a 4 by 4 sign or a
State.
4 by 8 sign? Is it based on the size of your building or?
It's based on the location.
4-lane or 2-lane?
Yeah.
Based on the location being the size of the building or the size of the lot or?
Or which road it's on?
Which road it's on, whether it's a corner lot, whether it's a DOT, they're actually putting it in DOT road.
Sometimes it's almost impossible to tell where the DOT right of way is.
It's hard, and sometimes they don't know.
Sometimes even when we're surveying, we can't tell where it is. It's difficult to know exactly. There's some of it would be almost impossible.
Your sign.
Usually it's easier to tell on the Georgia road, some road like that than it is on.
The Georgia road's got a lot of curving and fencing and stuff, you can pick it up pretty easy.
Yeah, and the power poles down there are pretty good areas.
Yeah, they're generally at least a foot off the road.
Yeah.
So what about like on secondary roads? Take Cody Lab, for example. There's the guy that wants to run over his dog.
Okay. I don't know what the sign is.
Well, kind of, it's explicable. But it's, so it's on the shoulder of the road,
Mhm.
but it's a temporary sign, it's on wires.
Okay.
So at what point, so right now, I guess being that it's temporary, you really don't have any control over that.
Temporary
I'm just trying to
signs-
understand.
Temporary signs can't be on for more than 30 days. So if it was an issue, we'd go take a picture of it, David, and look at it, call it.
The state can regulate that too, on the secondary roads?
If it's in their right of way.
It's in the right.
what's the right of way on secondary road?
Or Kelly allows it, I don't know.
The only thing is probably what they use to maintain.
Yeah,
They
right.
part maybe the ditch.
There's a right of way.
Some of it's got 60 feet, some of it don't have. They went back and got right away on that first couple of miles.
I know they have right of way across Maine.
And they went back and got right away on, everybody they could get to sign it from the highway down there over there to the bridge where the creek was. There.
No, I live on Wildscope Road, very secondary road, and I know the state come through there, got us a sign right away, and I got 25 foot on each side of that road.
If they repave that,
Yes.
if, what I think about is like 64, like Highland Road, stuff like that. They don't have any, they just start, you know, they never got a right of way years ago.
See, for years, the state didn't, they got right of ways, but they didn't record it. Even where they did get some right of ways, they didn't record it. And those have been declared null, because they're not recorded.
Right.
So there's a lot of roads that you'll find documents that people sign that the state's got, but they're not on record. Warrior Road's got 200 foot right of way, 100 foot each side center line.
What road?
Warrior, all the way through there. Well, I won't say all the way, but from up there to below the gap, all the way through to firehouse is dark.
On the down.
But it's not recorded, so it's recorded. And,
I think the part of the Warrior Road going like from Logan to Gloria through there, it's just easy.
yeah, it don't have, no, it was, you know, it was paved up far past Ironwood, and then they came in there and it was gravel out there, and gravel all over across. So they got it right away. I run into that over there at the lake, where we was doing some stuff. Some of those deeds said subject to 100-foot right of way, and I got to check into it, but the state can't claim it because they didn't record their deeds for the right of way. But the right of ways are a problem, it's hard to know.
So you got like a real estate on one of the cities, that's in the right of way, it's been there for a year and a half. It's up.
There's some exemptions for real estate signs, as long as it's under a certain size.
So if it's like the sign on the wire or something like that, it's probably, nobody's gonna move it unless they come along board.
Probably, or if it's in an intersection where somebody can't see, we probably do.
Well, Matt, do you all have some ideas about what could be done just to make it a workable thing?
Well, I think it needs to be, first it's gotta be understood that
Sorry.
it's
Can't
going to
see.
sleep. I think you gotta realize that this is not, we don't have the manpower to enforce it every day. I don't know that it needs to be enforced every day. But when it does need to be enforced, we've got to have something to do with it. Whether it's, typically what we've been doing is we'll ride the Georgia Road or Highlands Road once every 4 or 5 months. Just clean everything up that needs cleaned up. We've talked to several business owners and they'll move it back. If you go down the Georgia Road now, signs that you saw right on the edge of the road are back 10 or 12 feet. They might be close to the right of way, but they're a lot safer than what they used to be. It's interesting.
How's the town work?
Well, the town, we have 2 ways under general statute that we can adopt and enforce a sign ordinance. One's under our police power, general statute 168, 174, and the other one's under our zoning power. The town chooses to enforce it under our police power, the same way, the same avenue that the county uses to enforce theirs. One thing that jumps out at me right off the bat as a difference in the two is the county ordinance gives a way for somebody that has a hardship placed upon them from the sign ordinance to request a variance. And the town takes the position that you cannot request a variance to a police power ordinance. You can't request a variance to a speeding ticket or something like that. And that's the same, it's the same authority. And I'm by no means giving a legal opinion here, but that's something we need to look into right off the bat that jumps out at me to one thing that is in stark contrast with the town's ordinance and the county's ordinance. Another thing, the town's ordinance signage is tied to a zoning district as well as the building. In our neighborhood mixed use and our MICR, medical, institutional, cultural, residential district, it's geared more toward a mix of residential, doctor's offices, dentist offices, things like that don't have that commercial traffic generating impact that other business districts have. And those districts have a little bit less requirements on signs, 12 feet in height, excuse me, not 12 feet in height. The square footage and the height requirements in those districts are different than they are in our commercial districts. Now, in our commercial districts, we have an 18-foot maximum square height, which is less than the county's 30-foot. And we start out with a single tenant building can have one freestanding sign with 50 square foot of signage. As each additional tenant locates onto that building, the signage increases by 15 square feet up unto 8 tenants or 150 square feet. It stops at 150 square feet. Now, if the tenant has 10, if the development complex has 10 tenants, they get 150 square foot of signage, period. Our attached signage is a 1-to-1 ratio. The county's is 1.5 to 1. We, for every 1 linear foot of building frontage you have in the town, you can have 1 square foot of signage. And like I was saying, the town is 1.5 to 1. For every 1 linear footage of building frontage you have, you can have 1 square foot of signage. Another difference, the town absolutely no off-premise advertising unless it's an off-premise directional sign, and it can be 2 square feet, and it can only contain an arrow and the name of the business on there. That's all it can be.
Is that a 1-by-1?
Located on those signs. Yeah, or 2-by-1. It generally, the ones that we see are a 2-by-1. The permit application fees and transfers, town charges a $40 flat fee plus 25 cents per square foot of signage.
One time.
Yeah, that's a one-time fee. It's the same as the county. If
There's no fee on the county.
Yeah, we do it all we work with.
if the sign is in place for and if somebody wants to come in and just change the copy of that sign that's attached to the building or that's freestanding, then that's no charge. That's a copy change. But if they're going to put a new sign up, it's a new fee. But as long as they use the structure that's there, we don't charge them for that.
So if somebody moves out, another one moves in, they just need new copy, you're talking about the verbiage.
Yeah, they can change the copy and paint over it. With respect to the right-of-way, and it's something that I think, you said you were talking to Michael Jones, and I talked to Michael Jones as well. One of the first initiatives that the town took in the way of signage, and just to tell you a little bit about how nasty it is a nasty job. And we went and in conjunction with Division 14, we asked them, we said, hey, these are illegal by you guys' rules too. So will you come and help us if we go and sweep these right-of-ways and get all these temporary signs out of the right-of-way that do deter people's attention when they're driving down the road or block people's sight when they're pulling out of a business. And let me back up for a second. Our ordinance has a provision in there where if it's a dangerous sign, and like Matt was saying, if you pull up and you can't see past that sign, I can collect that sign right then and there. A dangerous sign can be removed immediately. And that provision is given to us in our ordinance, and if it's in state law, I think we're going to ask our attorney even if it's not in our ordinance, if we can still remove it, and I think we can. But getting back to the sign sweep, Division 14 was happy to help us. They sent 2 trucks over here with 3 men in each truck, and we took 3 days, and we went to the town of Franklin, and it's hard going in there and saying, you're gonna, but we did give them an option. We said either we're gonna take your signs right now, or you're gonna have to get them out of the right of way and off the property, usually, because we allow 1 freestanding sign per property, and that's it. And we gathered over 100 signs out, temporary signs, during that sign sweep that Division 14 helped us with. And the permanent signs that were in the right of way, the NCDOT sent them a letter to have the permanent signs removed from the right of way, or they would be in violation. And if they weren't removed after that, it was my understanding in talking with the DOT that the DOT was going to then turn it over to the appropriate federal agency to handle that. And to my knowledge, nothing further has been done since that initiative, but it was I didn't get invited to many Thanksgiving dinners after that, but needless to say, it's a rule that the town had in place, and even in a area that small, the sign ordinance is hard to enforce. And you can drive down the road home today and see temporary signs in the right of way today. And on a county level, when you're talking about 517 square miles, to enforce that, it's difficult, because it's difficult enforcing it in the town. And, you know, it's a hard job for one man to do, but through the sign ordinance, like Matt was saying, although you can't, especially with one man in the planning office, like is the case in the town and the county, you can't win the Super Bowl every day. You can't enforce every ordinance to the T every day, but you can have a tool that helps when you need it, when you have a dangerous sign, or, you know, and when coming into town, when people come into town, we want them to have a good first impression, you know, that in the city limits. We don't want it to look like Tombstone driving in, or Las Vegas, or something like that, you know, and it gives us the tool to regulate that in the city limits. And like Matt was saying, it's something that's there when you need it, and it sets some standards that it's not telling anybody they can't have a sign, but from the county's point of view, it's saying if you have a sign, they're going to be uniform. We're going to have some uniformity to it. We're going to have some height restrictions. We're going to have some square footage restrictions, and everybody's going to play by the same rules. Everybody can have a sign, but there's just going to be some uniformity to it, and it's going to make the town look good, and it's going to keep the town safe. And that's the standpoint that the town of Franklin takes on their sign.
As far as the town is concerned, on much understand on a multi-tenant site, if there's 100 on there, there's still that max out on that square footage, and there's no.
If you've got 300 feet of road frontage, is that allowed you to have two signs?
If you've got an additional road frontage that is over 100 linear foot, you can put another freestanding sign on the property. You can have two.
So you could have two, potentially as big as 150 square feet each.
Not for a freestanding sign. If you,
I thought there were some rules about.
yeah, you're saying if you have a multi-tenant development. though.
Yeah, I'm saying at some point though,
Yeah, if you've got a multi-tenant development and you got 441 running this way and you got another road running this way, you can have 150 feet here. Or no, excuse me, the second one cannot exceed 70 square feet.
but you have two signs.
Yeah, you can have two signs.
And what I was trying to get a handle on, so I've got how much road frontage do I have to have for my complex to be able to get two signs?
It's not, the second road frontage you have has to be 100. The first road frontage is a gimme. Now, if you want to go on an additional.
Well, I understand why, you know, if I've just got 50 feet of road frontage, one sign may be adequate because my track's probably not big enough to have enough tenants to get a 150 square foot sign too busy. But, you know, if I've got a bigger, longer building that parallels the road, at some point you don't cross over.
No.
Just one sign.
It stays from the get-go, it's based on the development. It's based on that building. It doesn't matter if you've got 1,000, if you're on one road and you've got 1,000 foot of frontage or 50 foot of frontage, just based on that building.
And ours, Mark, it just says one, it says freestanding signs on all roads shall not exceed 75 per square feet per directional flow of traffic.
Okay, if we're driving home today, with us in Macon County, town of Franklin, and we see a sign that's got Allison out there advertising or something like that, can we pretty safely assume that it's in compliance?
Allison Outdoor Advertising, that's all that DOT, they basically.
They've got lobbyists more powerful than any. They
They're all
say
permitted through DOT.
So you can't regulate Allison outdoor signs in the city?
you could be, I'm not gonna say that, I'm gonna air here, but, I mean, it's unbelievable how powerful that group is, those billboard lobbyists, and they're well protected, and
So you're telling me you cannot regulate in your city?
no.
City?
So getting back to the Allison.
The ones that are there,
Well, I said
There's
Allison.
an Allison outdoor
outdoor
sign out there, and it's got a DOT number on it.
So it's,
That sign's legal.
yeah.
Yes.
and do we have any in Macon County that are not legal? Or that's what I'm trying to get at.
I think one of the issues with the sign is, and you see this, you go to Highlands, for instance, where signs are not as popular as they are in other areas. Businesses are not competing as much with each other to draw in business through the sign because they're somewhat limited in what they can do. You see that in a lot of commercialized areas that have a real stringent sign ordinance. In areas where there's not a sign ordinance, you run what you run, then those signs, tend to get out of hand, and you have some issues with them being unsightly and unsafe, because I'm trying to make mine flash a little more than Jimmy's is. Jimmy's trying to get his to flash a little more than Mark to draw attention to our business.
So it can be a disease.
Pardon?
Signs can be a disease. It just keeps spreading. But it can be, you're right. You have a question?
Yes. So you're saying we've got a rule that says a business can't have a certain sign. But if that business has a piece of property and they're making a profit off of that Allison sign, they're exempt to put their sign up too, along with that Allison? What about that old wood down the street? You don't have nothing. I've got a sign. As a business owner, I'm making money off that sign.
Okay.
Now you're saying that I can put my sign up as well as that, even though I'm making money off of releasing that sign post to
If you had the let me get it right. You got a piece of business property that you put a sign up for your business
I've got a Allison sign
on the same piece of
on
property.
the same piece of property.
Yeah, you could probably legally do that.
There are some restrictions, Danny, in our ordinance in the county about when an on-premise and off-premise are located on the same piece of property. It has to be a certain distance away and things like that. It says right here,
500 feet,
it's,
1,000.
the minimum space between off-premise advertising signs shall be at least 1,000 linear feet. That's from off-premise sign to off-premise sign. There's got to be 1,000, it says additional spacing.
But there's nothing.
No off-premise advertising sign shall be located on a parcel or lot within an existing freestanding sign, on-premise sign, or within 100 feet of a freestanding on-premise sign on the same side of the road. So you'd have to be 100 feet away from it with an on-premise sign, but I think it could go on there, Matt. Is that how you read that?
Yeah. The problem sometimes becomes Allison or the DOT permits one side of it, and we permit the other side. It can be an issue. But yeah, you're right, that's the way it would be with that.
And we need to get those billboard, and I tried to look for them today, but I got caught up in something else. There's a set of rules that govern those.
Yeah, I sent that email back.
Advertise, and I remember you sending it.
It's the whole book,
Yeah.
that's the whole general statute.
That's the DOT's guidelines.
That's the regulations for control on outdoor advertising.
So we got an understanding of what the county has, we understand what the town has. What issues do you see with our ordinance, and what's your thoughts on what, if anything, needs to be cleaned up in it?
One thing Derek mentioned was the appellate variance process. I don't know that, once Chester gets a hold of it, that might be an issue because some of that police power rule has changed. I think theirs is probably closer more to legal than ours is. We'll have to look at that with Chester. Our biggest problem with signage is temporary signs, whether they're, and that's
In the right of way or out of the right of way?
95% of them in the right of way.
Thank you.
Because that's where 95% of the traffic is.
I agree. Where do you cross the line between a temporary sign and a permanent sign?
By our definition of temporary sign, it's a sign without a structural frame, meaning what we take as a wooden frame.
So like the 2 pieces of plywood built in a sandwich or whatever you call it?
Not permanently attached to the building structure or the ground and not intended for limited period of display. So anything that you can pull out of your truck, stick in the ground, or just stand up, would be temporary.
That's gonna be almost impossible to do on a regular basis.
You can't do it on a regular basis, but what you can do is sort of control. Well, a prime example is I pulled up there at Addington Bridge Road in 441, and I was on the Clark's Chapel side. I went, looked right there, was just taking a picture, went down to George Road, came back, and already had a temporary sign on the intersection. I mean, you can't control it. What's there today won't be there tomorrow.
And it's because most people don't even have a clue that they ain't supposed to put signs in the right of way.
No. So, and then the question becomes, when you stole my signs and throw my signs away, we typically will keep them 3 to 4 months in a storage building. And then if nobody calls, we'll throw them out. That's the process right now. I really didn't see, I actually had problems with sign orders before I took the job. I think it was over-enforced, personally. But where I really saw a hit was when the sweepstakes came in. You would see the first business, like Crossing, the first business had 6 or 8. Then you'd have the next business 10 or 12, and it got up to one business having 20. In an 11-mile stretch, there was 14 sweepstakes. So the signs added up. And I know you saw it. That was where I say we had the biggest problem.
I believe that's dead, that's all.
I don't think it's dead. I think the wheel will be reinvented.
Change their description of it, or?
I hope it's dead.
And all they do is change
My
it.
personal opinion,
All they do is change the description of it, put it up, the legislature come back in, take care of that, and wipe it out again, and then just, I don't think that's something very well supported in the state of North Carolina. It would be wiped out pretty regularly, one way or the other through legislative power.
Jimmy brought up a good point about that a lot of people don't know about it. Before we did our sign sweep in the town, I think we ran for a couple weeks in the press a notice that, hey, these signs are illegal, and you know, we're gonna be doing this sign sweep on this date, and so we tried to educate the public all we could before we did that, and that a lot of business owners were really appreciative of that. And a lot of business owners are appreciative of the fact that we comprehensively covered the whole town. Because if you gotta take your signs down, then he needs to take his down too.
Yeah, you got to treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
It's not the reason.
With any ordinance, that's about much to me. You gotta enforce it equally as you see fit. And of course, it's hard to do at the town level, but it's even harder to do at the county level, because
Yeah.
constructing a sign sweep took y'all 3 days, it took him for a month.
So really, the only choice he has is to do his job, which is the planning department, and take phone calls that are complaints, and then he goes fix those.
We usually will do a ride through every couple of months. We'll focus on Georgia Road, 28 Highlands Road, and 64 West. And that's about all we can do.
I agree. So realistically,
Go ahead, Mike.
I usually don't do this, but I was just curious. Does DOT not have authority to remove those signs that are on?
They do. They have the authority, they just don't have the manpower. And what I was saying a minute ago, 9 times out of 10, the only time they get those signs is during mowing operation.
so your main thoroughfares realistically could be code maybe 8 times a year. If y'all rode this, 6 times every couple of months, and then the DOT mows twice. So,
That's about where we're at, just to be honest with you.
on-
And we're not going to the head of Wiles Cove to pull a sign, there ain't no way.
Don't you think DOT probably is more apt to focus on one that might create some sort of safety
Sure.
hazard?
And that's what the sign was.
And that was kind of my point with the sign you were talking about down at the little plywood sign. Technically, it's in the DOT right away, but is it a problem?
You ran over a located, you drove
Right.
hard with that, I guess.
It just depends on how you look at it.
That's one aspect of the safety issue I haven't even thought about, is if it's a big sign that's made out of concrete block and something hits it, it's gonna hurt you a lot more.
In the right of way, Jim?
Yeah, in the right of way.
Okay.
In the Octo area, you come down Middle Creek, Tennessee, there've been about 3 people killed by putting about the size of a real estate sign right there in the, where you pull out, you can't see around
At the bridge there?
at the bridge.
But that's back to
Across from
the-
post office.
The thing Derek mentioned, the terrain and the topography or whatever sometimes create a hazard, a small sign, whereas, somewhere else it would be a problem.
Yeah, it's all
So
sides.
how do you deal with that? Am I right? I mean,
You need to be able to see out the highway, when you come out Coweta Church Road there, the fire department's got a sign right there, I can't see around that sign, so I have to pull up a little bit, because my car and that sign is even. And, you can't see around, there's several out there that you cannot see around when you pull out on the road.
They have a water point sign there.
They do. We've had 3 wrecks there, like, just right in there in the Hickory Knoll Road. And when you come through there, people are flying. I mean, 70 miles an hour, people out of Atlanta is backing up. And they come through there in trailer trucks, just.
well, that's bad, limited visibility anyway, without the sign, too, right there.
So and I think Peggy brought it up about it, if Peggy's concerned about that, she called you?
She can call me, and then I can, I need to do something about it, or relay it to somebody, hopefully they can.
Or she could call the DOT office right here in Franklin.
They can do it if they're not mowing or something like that. So the water point sign is probably more of one when you talk to dedicated firehouse, and he'll just move it or lower it or whatever.
Move it back a little bit, a foot.
That's probably an issue that I can personally resolve pretty quick.
That's my main concern, and when we're having yard sales up Coweta Lab Road, you can't see very clearly there when they stick them up right in that guardrail. But I used to call Joel Seltzer. When they took mine down, I was a good watchdog for several years.
Got Joel's cell phone down there.
For all the right reasons.
For the right reasons. I wanted equal treatment.
Good job. That hard.
Yeah.
You go around and do all
We
Macon
put some
County.
volunteer work in, hey.
I think the public, if they can see something like that, even this board, and we took it and kept out with it. I mean, it's no big deal. Everybody's got a cell phone that rings when it should anyway. But that's how we kept 441 police down through there, was people calling and saying, we can't see out because it was dangerous. And the Eagles Mob man had his sign going up Chestnut to some houses he
Right.
built.
I remember that.
Those people got killed. And,
They just couldn't see.
You couldn't see come out. And that's a danger point that we need to look at.
Well, don't you think probably some business owners or developers or property owners, whatever, sometimes putting up a sign without having much experience? What they need to be thinking about, it's not like Alvin coming out there and trying to decide whether they can put one or not, block vision or block people's field of vision intersections and stuff, and they don't intentionally do that.
Yeah.
You won't think of it till it happens, something happens, and
But
then
you
you
get it
do.
up, and it's too much trouble to change it, so you hope it'll go away.
But it can be very dangerous. Those little signs, temporary signs, and like him, that's one of the biggest problems.
I'm really close to hide it.
Mhm.
They're right when the most point.
I'm gonna say it in the right way.
I'm pretty sure they're,
So the biggest issue, you say 95% of the problem is signage, right?
that's what I would say, isn't there? A lot of it.
Which is all illegal anyway, right?
Which is
Well,
state
we got
law.
sign orders wrong.
But we have an agreement to enforce.
It's legal under the county ordinance and under state law.
Right, but it's not.
Let's not get divorced.
Mr. Chairman, I've read the ordinance, and it's been passed under the police powers that says to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens in our county. I don't think the signage has any usage for health or welfare of the citizens in Macon County. Okay? So that's not a regulatory authority. Safety is an issue. Okay? But the safety is covered under DOT regulations. and it needs to be enforced by the DOT. And as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know if this is fact, but I wish you'd check on it, you are an arm of the state government, and you can go out there and enforce it yourself as a county employee. We need to check on that. But with that said, I think that we don't need double regulation to get this job done. And having the fact that the DOT is covering the right of ways, I would like to make a motion that we ask the county commissioners to rescind this ordinance and work within the DOT guidelines and go from there.
Well, I think, point well taken. I think the first process before we consider that would be to know whether or not we can even do that, whether or not he can enforce a state law. I don't know how legal that is.
I'm thinking Chester's not gonna want to jump into that.
Well, as a citizen,
To me, that's along the same lines, can a deputy sheriff, uphold the same thing as a state or a federal officer? I don't know the answer.
but a citizen can call Matt. Matt can call the DOT, or the citizen can call the DOT and say, look, we have a safety issue here, and that problem can be handled. And I just don't think we need a double regulation, so I would like to say, I'll make a motion that we would ask the county commissioners to do away with the sign ordinance and stick with the DOT regulations.
Jimmy, clarify for me, I don't think that the county commissioners were looking for us to make a recommendation of whether or not we need the ordinance. I was under the impression that they wanted us to review the
Yeah,
ordinance.
we asked y'all to review the ordinance, and if this board decides that you don't need the ordinance, then we'll take that into consideration. I don't know. If
Yeah, it's
the board
their
will agree with you or
decision,
not.
it's their decision, I'm not
Now,
trying to say.
I'm not going, when y'all get into discussion, if y'all do have a second on the motion, I'll give you my 2 cents on it too. I try not to get too involved in y'all's discussions because I don't want y'all to do it. I don't want to influence the way you're thinking or not. I like y'all to hash it out. And y'all have been having some very good, healthy discussion. You talk about some good, you talk about some bad, you talk about some ugly. Personally, as a commissioner, that's what I like to hear y'all do. I like y'all to take a problem and hash it out and try to find a solution, a logical solution for it. And if that's the logical solution that y'all come up with, then we do it. Now, I mean, when this comes up, if it does second, I've got a lot of discussion that I would like, questions answered. I've got a lot of questions answered. I'll let you call discussion first. That's you got to say. Sorry. I've got a lot of questions that pop up in my mind immediately that I know are going to arise before us is y'all probably, I'm sure y'all know it a lot better than I do, the sign ordinance, but are there other restrictions in that sign ordinance that the DOT doesn't address, such as on-premise signs that, is there a size to them? Are there, I'm used to the Highland sign ordinance, which is on steroids compared to anything else around. It's very, very intense, but are there lighting restrictions? Or, I mean, can you put a, because the state's not going to tell you whether or not, the state sign ordinance is not going to tell you whether or not, as long as you're off the right of way, whether or not you can put a beacon light that's airport light.
Safety thing, safety
Right,
aspect.
right. But I don't know, is there things in this ordinance that need to be addressed that aren't, or does the DOT, but the DOT is not going to probably address.
They would if it was a safety concern.
They would on 441 South and probably 28, other places in the county they won't. If they're right away.
You know, we mentioned the gambling ordinance. So does that mean that if we don't have a sign ordinance, and as long as they're off the right of way, can they put in, if they want to put in spend the money and put in 100-yard tall by 100-yard wide sign advertising their premises, can they do, I don't know, is there a sign ordinance?
Right now, our ordinance allows for on-premise signs to be 75 square feet per direction flow of traffic. Off-premise signs are 300 square feet. If we could do away with it, they could go as big as they wanted, wherever they wanted, however they wanted.
And that's, I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying I disagree with it right
And it's
now.
Friday, they want to flash them on.
What if that blocks, what if their sign blocks my business? Like, then nobody can see it. Then nobody can see my business.
By our ordinance, if we do away with the ordinance, then you've got,
We talk county again there. Sorry.
Yeah, but Derek's talking county. I mean, you're right.
I mean,
We
Mark
don't have-
puts a sign 300 feet wide, or,
I blocked Derek's business off, no matter how big a sign he puts up, so he's gotta put his up.
so then I'm gonna go on a pole about 30 feet up in the air, or 40 feet up in the air, and put my sign above Mark's that's 50 feet wide, 60 feet wide,
Ain't
about
gonna be
30
right.
feet tall, and I'm just gonna say, well, there ain't no way I can ever advertise. The only thing I'm gonna be able to do now is shoot a 100-foot pole
Well,
up there and
fast
put
foot
something on top of it with a beacon light.
But the thing that I made this motion on is health, safety, and welfare. Okay,
But
you're not talking about a safety issue.
But the purpose of this ordinance is.
But it's passed on the,
I understand that,
the health, safety, and welfare issue.
but the purpose of it,
I can tell you what has me hung up is a mission statement.
the purpose of these sign regulations is to guide and regulate the construction and placement of signs in Macon County. It is the intent of this chapter to preserve and maintain the scenic and aesthetic environment of the county, and I know that's not police power, in order to protect and promote the tourist industry. And, you know, that a lot of people have their welfare based off the tourist trade. And, I mean, if you're coming into Macon County up 441 South, and you got a 30-foot by 50-foot sign, and then a sign 100-foot tall with a beacon on it to draw attention to that business, I'm just saying, you know, where am I going here? You know, when I'm driving up the road, and I'm not saying that, I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think about Peggy's real estate business. Is that gonna hurt how many people wanna come here and buy a second home? If they're coming up, I mean, I'm thinking about the whole broad picture here. I mean, you know, I'm thinking about everything. And that's where I'm coming from. I'm just saying, if I'm from Florida and I got money to spend and I want to come here and I want to build a house here using a local contractor, and you go to a local realtor to get my property somewhere in this county and get my house in this county, and the first impression I got coming up from Florida up 441 South is I see this sign, then I see this sign with the beacon on it, then I see, I mean, what am I
Where do
getting
you
myself
stop?
into?
You know?
What's, and if that continues, then is that affecting Peggy's welfare? Is that affecting Mike Welch Construction's welfare? If somebody chooses not to build a house here because of that, if they don't want to put a security system in, is that affecting Carl's welfare? If they don't have to engineer it, is it affecting Chris's? I mean, Lamar's not going to get to survey it if they don't subdivide it to buy a house, so. It's a domino effect, and it's something I think we need to at least give it the courtesy to give it a thorough look and analysis before we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And I appreciate your statements, and I think we might need a sign on this, but not under the premises of health, safety, and welfare.
And where are you reading that, Joe?
I mean, that whole premise, what does it say in the first section of it, that it says you adopted this, the ordinance under GS, whatever it is?
153.
153A, which gives you the police powers to adopt an ordinance without a public hearing if you wanted to, which Macon County has never done, which I'm proud of. But in that area, it says that it has to be about the health, safety, and welfare.
Okay, so if we change that to where it's just under general orders, making power, you're happy to go home.
If we get it back to, when we start talking about aesthetics,
There's no aesthetics in this, Jim.
if you limit my sign to 30 square feet, you're.
That's not aesthetic. That's,
I mean, if we're saying a 100-foot sign is, a 30-foot sign is better than a 100-foot sign, that's aesthetics, that's not safe. That's what my whole premise here is yes, maybe we need a sign ordinance, and I'd love to talk about it, but not under these premises. And if y'all want to go back and do another ordinance and have a sign ordinance that effectively controls aesthetics, then we ought to have it that way.
So you're saying rescind this while we do another?
Yes. And then we can look at aesthetics and go that way.
But until that, will the commissioners have?
All I'm saying is
We're
what
supposed to be doing this over the next couple, 3 months, I don't think it's.
Yeah.
I think we leave, it's been in place since 1995, and I've always heard people complain about it, but, you know, it's a.
I think a lot of it is too, Mark, though, is we just spent 4 months talking about the ordinance, and we all came to at least 4 meetings for nothing.
well,
It may come
so
back to
far.
fruition, but at this point,
That's,
and I can understand everyone's frustration with that, if they are frustrated.
But, I mean, are we doing justice to to the businesses and the people in this county by just saying rescind it? We don't want to look at it?
For what was the
I didn't
county
say-
like in 1994?
Or-
I mean, was there a 200-foot tall with a beacon on it in 1994?
There's not any now, are there? 14 years
Go ahead,
later.
Dan.
Yeah. Come up the hill out at the Huddle House and the Waffle House. There's so many signs on that side of the road up through there, living signs and stuff. You can't even read the first one, let alone read all the rest of it. One night, just come up the hill at the Huddle House.
Where
Now, that's a point that he was trying to say about all the signage and people coming here. And I'm neutral on this thing, I'm on nobody's side.
I understand.
Now, the situation with the signage thing, Jimmy, when that man was enforcing the policy, how much revenue did he take in? Are we doing the good old boy thing, of just going out there, picking that person's sign up, taking it to the, wherever we store it? He comes up there and picks it up, and 3 days later, he's back out there and then got it back up. And if you're gonna have an ordinance, you gotta have some kind of revenue somewhere to pay somebody to enforce it. Kay Hagan talked to me the other night, now about this Mexican border deal. And I have friends that work out there. They pick up a Mexican, he comes across today, 48 hours later, he's back in Mexico. 64 hours later, they picking him up coming back because there's no enforcement on it. You put that Mexican in jail for 5 years and he can't send money back to his family, he's gonna think about it because it's enforced. It's like so many other things. Yes, the state's got a law on it. Don't do no good to have a law if we ain't got no enforcement. Hendersonville went through this sign ordinance thing over here, town of Hendersonville did. And until that officer actually enforced it on the signs, picking them up and removing them, they had signs, they'd take them down one day, the business owner put a new sign up the next day. Until it's enforced, you can draw up all the policies you want to. How much money do we take in? Very little. Now, that's all I got to say about it. I mean, you can make the rule and the regulation until you get somebody to enforce it and generate a revenue to do it. It don't have to be a $5,000 fine, a $25 fine. Go out there and tell that person the first time, hey, take your sign up. Go back and tell them the second time. I tell them back the third time, you're gonna have a fine.
So your thoughts of
Until you can enforce it.
that would get people.
We've got a good sign ordinance, but it's never been enforced. The man sat right here and said it. I've listened to you in this conversation the whole time. But it's never been enforced.
The state,
Peggy told me about 4 or 5 times about a sign down there, and she talked to a certain person, but nobody enforced it.
they did too.
They come and got them, but they were right back.
They were there, the state enforced those signs from the time I bought that building to,
No, I'm talking about the one you was talking about where the wrecks was.
yeah, they
You
enforced
told me there
that.
was 3 wrecks there because of a sign.
They were, but different people.
Okay, yeah.
But the state did enforce it because they would come back and forth.
State of North Carolina does the same thing. They go out and they pick these signs up. They come over and picked up my sign. And I had to set it up against the building over there now. But I didn't put it back out there.
Well, I've had much more complaints of businesses moving into Macon County because they could not put up a decent sign that you'd read coming down 441 to know they were there. And I've had a lot more people, customers and people coming in here complain because we've got too stringent one than to complain because we did enforce it and have a sign ordinance. I don't think I've ever had anybody say, oh, it's a good ordinance, a good thing to have that much going on. They say, well, we'll just move to somewhere else with our business and our money. In fact, one of the ones on the Georgia Road almost didn't move his business up here. So
Well, I'm
I
not
think we
saying
can
nothing
get
about
two.
that business putting up a sign. I'm saying if we're gonna have,
And
you
it's
know, this is what I'm
enforceable.
saying. If we're gonna have this, then we gotta have the revenue to enforce it. Or don't have it. There's no need to have it if you ain't gonna enforce it. And you're not gonna play a fine on somebody where you moved the sign 3 times, and on that 4th time, you go back out there, that person got that sign out there again. There should be a $20 fine, and it should be collected.
Decent sign.
Jackson and Haywood, they're all about the same, about like
The town's got some pretty good enforcement mechanisms.
You actually find.
the town of Franklin is pretty good.
Which are-
The town of Highlands, to me, is out there.
It's on steroids.
Yeah.
They've got zoning. See,
Yeah.
if they could help them with this, we don't have that. So,
Chris, what's your thought?
Just listening. I guess I feel like the right of way is regulated by the DOT. I don't see why Macon County needs to be doing this next job. I feel like we sent enough.
We're doing everything else, John, funding school system, all these other things.
Don't get me going on that one, because I can talk for hours about that too. But, you know, I was coming, and Jim, you're not gonna like this, but I was coming into Clayton after driving for 12 hours at 10 o'clock the other night. And they got a billboard now across the street from Walmart.
Yeah, I saw that, yes.
It's all LED.
It's
You
all,
can't, I mean, it's
It is.
blinding.
It's all.
At 10 o'clock
You
at
got your
night when you've been on the road. I have a clue what it said. It was too bright to read.
It says the Chamber of Commerce Highlands.
We don't have a clue what it said. It works well. But I think that, I mean, to me, that there's safety involved in
I
that.
agree with that.
And I look at the mission statement that's been handed out more than once, you know, it clearly says the beauty and tranquility of our communities. And I certainly don't think signage like that provides beauty and tranquility. And so I guess that's kind of where I'm on the fence with it. I think if you have it, you have to enforce it. I dislike selective enforcement because you get the good old boy network and it seems to be the same few people that always get picked on. So I do agree, if you're gonna have it, you do need to enforce it. If you're not gonna enforce it, then don't have it.
So then let's make a recommendation that if we do go through this, one of our recommendations is that we staff it to where it's enforced properly.
How many men do you do that?
well, if you do that, you got, might get enough fines to pay for it. We don't want to,
I don't think that would be fair.
I don't think we ought to take more action on the pay for it. I would be in favor of
Well,
that.
we start doing that in our planning board meeting.
What do you think?
Well, I sort of agree with Chris. I think, you know, you need to have some control, or got me trying to outdo Derek, an example that you used. I think you somehow got to draw a line. You know, I personally think that probably outdoor advertising, commercial sites, there's a lot of money in those things. Costs a lot to rent them. They're paying property owners like Danny a lot of money to park them there. You know, that's deteriorating to the, I mean, that is contributing to the perception our community gives to a certain extent. Maybe not as bad as Reagan County, but nevertheless, it's out there. So, you know, I think we need something. I agree that this is not what we need, that there needs to be some work done on this ordinance. I think it may be enforceable and manageable. I don't think you need full-time, you might need a full-time employee for a few months, but I don't think you need a, I don't think you're talking about that. I think you can shift people around and get it in shape personally, but.
Or you make a focus area.
I don't know that you have to be worried about the real estate sign on the side of the road on the LJ kind of thing.
The sign that you saw, Chris, as Derek has said, they have lobbyists like crazy.
Yeah, but what's to say that if I didn't come up with 30 grand and I wanted to put the sign out in my front yard, that I could?
I'll tell you a prime example. Go down Addington Bridge Road to the Prince Church, their lighted sign,
Yeah.
right across from the school. Go down there about midnight one night and look what it does in poor people across the street.
South of that sign Chris mentioned,
This is.
oh, there's a whole, every little church down through there, a whole bunch of businesses got these little small signs with the temperature on.
Right.
And I was coming up through there a few months ago, and every one of them had a different temperature. I don't know.
But
But
that-
so obviously somebody's selling those things down there.
But that sign, when it first went up, was a flashing sign, and it was flashing so fast those people couldn't go to sleep at night.
What do that?
They made it to where it couldn't flash, it could still be lit, and it still glows on that house. I mean,
Why did they do that?
Why?
Why did they make it work?
because the ordinance doesn't allow flashing or blinking signs. But it can scroll as long as it's slow enough to not be
No.
distracted.
I want to stick with my motion and say that we're looking at health, safety, and welfare, and we need to step back as Macon County and do our ordinance without the premise of the police powers and ask the citizens to participate.
If you got any comment?
My personal opinion on it is that I can't stand rules and regulations when you can't understand them. I like the old philosophy of KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And if we're, personally, if we're mimicking what the state's doing, unless it's an enforcement issue that we don't know the answer to, I don't know why we have it in ours. You just simplify our ordinance. Now, I can obviously see from hearing y'all's discussion that there's reasons for the side ordinance to be there. Now, the reasons, I guess it's up for discussion, Jim has there, what the reasons are for it. I can definitely see that line, that sign at Walmart, like, after place on Lines and Highlands, yeah, I'm just kidding. But that's an example. I mean, people that live on some of the ridges in this town, these communities, they're looking at it before you get lighting issues like that. And you might be able to now, I don't know, I haven't studied the sign and stuff. I can see where it could be a deterrent to somebody's pursuit of happiness, pursuit of well-being in this community. I think that's very important.
Well,
Very important while we're out here in Macon County is what we're having.
the sign that said Blue Gasper Gold Place, that you have at night, that thing shining right in your eye when you came over that hill.
So I can see some bad, and I can understand too why you would want something. I can understand the freedoms there. I think there's, personally, I think there's going to be a happy medium. Looking at the good and bad of this ordinance and throwing out what's bad. Throwing out some of what's good, come to some consensus on what you have here. But y'all's course of action, I'll take it back to the court, however you want to do it.
It seems to me that saying that this sign ordinance has nothing of any value in it, and we need to recommend the county commissioners that we don't need a sign ordinance. It is extremely short-sighted and certainly does not reflect what's in this board's mission statement. If that's the pleasure of this board, then so be it. But I think that that minimum goes against our mission statement, and I think it has repercussions something far beyond that. So that's my 2 cents for it. Anybody else have any comment?
Well, I just hope if Jimmy's motion doesn't carry, or pass, or you look at it, then, are we suggesting we start over with this ordinance? Is that what
I think at this
Is that what
point,
you're
we've got a motion and a second, and we've got to discuss that. If that doesn't pass, then that would be the next line, the next discussion.
My thought would be to let Matt give us suggestions based on his experiences trying to administer what we got here. This was an issue 10 years ago.
And we can certainly do that once we get past the motion that's on the floor. Lamar? Why?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, I can see both sides of it, but I can also see where you just can't let people go out there and put up signs that are outrageous. So I don't know that I have the expertise or even think about rewriting this thing. But I guess when you look at it, probably needs to be done. We may need some help with getting it done. Probably in the day we live in, we probably need it, I guess.
But we have an ordinance, and all that stuff down 441 was talking about has come in here since this ordinance was written. And we still have flashing signs 7 foot in the air, so what, how are we gonna overcome that?
Where do you have a flashing sign 70 feet from
Probably one of those right there as you go up the town hill with the Foothill House and all the things in there.
I'm not aware of any of those flashing, but those are in the city limits.
So they will cover, this doesn't cover them.
Well, you know, you've got the issue, that's kind of a commercial corridor up through there, so you've got the Cracker Barrel, you've got the McDonald's, and those kind of things. You got the poor people living across the street from that church, you know, and it's like a strobe light, and you pull the blinds, it's still, you're pulsing through the blinds. So, you know, how do you blend all together, I don't know, I probably don't have the expertise to be the one to say it, but, you know, I think this can be simplified a lot.
I think you could look at certain commercial areas that are not zoned commercial, but they're just have tendency to be commercial areas. Maybe make those a priority.
As far as enforcement.
You know, your residential secondary stuff maybe goes away. I don't know. Just kind of figure it out.
I think there's a lot of valid points that have been made, and certainly some great ideas about what discussions need to take place relative to this ordinance, but, you know, we're gonna have to, we've got a motion and a second, so we're gonna have to take care of that order of business before we can have those discussions. So at this point, we're not gonna have those discussions.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying, I'm not making my motion to say that we do better. That's not my motion. My motion says that this sign ordinance was passed on the premise of health, safety, and welfare. So I think this sign ordinance needs to go. Now, if the county commissioners and their great wisdom think we need a sign ordinance, that task is what I do.
Yeah.
Or you could amend this one so that it is passed.
And take
Under-
out the
aesthetic.
health, safety, welfare thing and make it a more of an aesthetic thing, if that's what the citizens of Macon County want. Great.
I think that will go into, if we keep this one and review it, that will be something we'll talk to Chester about.
I was under the impression that if we used the police powers, that we had to have that in there. And that's what we did with that. And I don't think we need to use the police powers to pass the ordinance like this. That's my complaint with the whole thing. It's not a complaint about signs. It's a complaint about the way this ordinance was passed under the police powers, because I think we overused that.
You know, it's been 18 years ago.
We do it a lot now.
Some period ago. I don't know what all the history was, who the attorney was, and those kinds of questions.
Well, I just want to make it very clear that I'm not asking for this motion because I'm against the sign ordinance. I'm asking for this motion because we passed it under the premise of health, safety, and welfare. And that, I don't think that applies here because the safety aspects of the ordinance is covered in the DOT regulations by the state. And I don't think we do that. That's my motion.
So the motion has not changed, the motion still stands.
Yes.
The second still stands, that we do away with this ordinance. And that would be our recommendation back to the.
Okay, can I amend the motion? In a few seconds, I'll say, we do away with the ordinance and ask the commissioners to retask us with doing a sign ordinance without those premises.
Why don't you just ask them to do another?
I'll do another, that's fine.
And not rescind this one?
And rescind this one.
You can't, if you rescind this one, the sign's gonna go crazy until you write a new one. You'll have to have one effect until you get another.
Well, ain't nothing gonna happen until the county commissioners votes on it, okay? If they say, no, we don't wanna rescind this one until we get a new one, they send it back to us and say, give us a new one, that thing's not gonna be rescinded. We don't rescind it.
No, you're
They
right.
do.
What have we got, what other, didn't we, they tell us that the only means we had passing without zoning was the police power
For sign ordinances?
for any kind of ordinance?
Probably because it's not a municipality.
But you know, you get into the issue, the word game though, if our charge is to preserve the integrity of our mountain heritage and beauty and tranquility of our communities.
And I agree with you.
Who's to say that they're gonna make interpretation of welfare and so on is included in that, safety, welfare, and whatever else?
Well, in my opinion, and that's the reason I'm making this motion, that we are not looking at the health, we are looking at the safety aspects of it. I do agree with that, but the safety aspects of this ordinance are regulated under DOT regulations, and I'd like to see them do their job because we're giving them money to do it. Plus, I'd like to know if Matt can be an arm of the state government under that auspice and go and do the job when people calls him and gets him to do it.
Lamar, I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
Well, I think that's what they were told, that
I
there
think
was
you're exactly
only
right.
two things that you could pass these ordinances under, if you didn't have zoning.
Exactly right.
That was changed.
Can you repeat that, police powers and what was the second one?
The zoning, you can
Zoning,
have
police
zoning,
powers.
and you can do things like
You
that.
don't have
Zoning.
You don't have police powers.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is under the police powers, the safety of the citizens of Macon County is already protected.
But if that's the only avenue to write the ordinance, Jimmy, that's all we got.
But under the police powers,
That's it.
I agree with
Stop. That's it.
but
I believe that's what we were told.
I still
When we
believe
started that
that,
high impact ordinance.
I still believe that the citizens of Macon County's safety is being protected by the state regulations.
So you still want to rescind the ordinance?
Yes.
I catch where you're coming back now with the definition of welfare. Okay. I'm trying to take notes on this.
And Jimmy, I appreciate all your hard work. I appreciate you sitting here and listening to all this because it's,
No, I'm learning. I mean, I've got an interest in the county, like all y'all do.
and I may lose this motion, and that's what it's all about. That-
Well, I'm gonna hopefully have some answers to these questions, or Chester, I can't remember if he's on vacation this week or not, he's gonna get bombarded by me tomorrow.
So if that's the only route to have a sign ordinance, and you think that we need a sign ordinance,
Well, now that we've got to that issue right there, no.
Jimmy, what
Because
you gotta realize is you're on the planning board. We're trying to protect everybody in this county. This is not a political stool.
Nah, it's
because
not.
you
This is
hung
not
up
a
on-
personal.
this ain't got no, it ain't no personal thing to me.
Then
It's-
why are you hung up on a word?
I'm hung up on the fact that the state should be doing this and we should make them do it. And we should help them do that as a arm of the government, and we don't need two regulations to get this job.
But the
So-
state's not going to regulate the size of the signs or the height of the signs or.
What's that got to do with the safety?
It's the only avenue we have to pass the ordinance.
Read your verbiage again, welfare, safety, welfare.
Health, safety, and welfare.
Yeah, and the lawyer's gonna make an interpretation, and welfare is part of what well-being, and, I mean, you start getting into that game, we're playing semantics here.
Call it to a vote.
All right, let's vote.
so are you amending,
Huh?
are you amending your, what exactly is the motion? What is the
The motion-
Have you proposed an amendment to your motion?
Well, the motion is that I think we need to rescind this ordinance because the safety of the citizens of Macon County is being regulated by the state, and this sign ordinance doesn't help that. And I think we need to rescind it because it's already covered. We need to work better with the state as a county to regulate those issues and protect the safety of the citizens of Macon County. And we don't need this sign ordinance to do that.
Okay, so condensing your motion down, you think this ordinance needs to be rescinded, period.
Yes.
Okay.
That I will say, all the other semantics.
Okay, this thing
I don't know
needs to be
about it,
rescinded,
but
period.
Rescind the sign ordinance, I will say.
So your motion is that sign ordinance should be rescinded,
I'll second
and you're
that.
second that. Any further discussion? All in favor that the current sign ordinance should be rescinded, raise your right. We have 3, 4 opposed. I'm sorry.
You got the 3, 4, and 3.
Very good.
You just,
Chairman's
you
gonna
vote.
vote.
Chairman's going to vote.
Come on, Lamar, you're going to vote.
No, Carl can vote.
Go along, it's your civic duty, because if you don't, I will.
I really don't know how to vote, so I don't know what, I've got mixed emotions about it.
On the pretense that I think it's extremely short-sighted to do, I'll vote against rescinding it. So Jimmy's motion fails 4-3. Has been defeated. Now, if we want to have further discussion, now we can do that. I think it's a good point to break out. You got the 6 o'clock.
I'll do my best. I know Chester's on vacation, I can't remember what his dates are, but I'll do my best to have those questions answered that I've taken down here. Let me say two other things as well. I appreciate all of y'all's willingness to listen to each other, to try to understand each other, versus listening to each other to try to retort to each other, to try to understand these points and learn and try to come up with some good solutions. I also want to say, Jimmy, and I forgot Derek at our last meeting, he was sitting behind a speaker, I couldn't see him. Mr. Goodwin will agree that I did my best to thank y'all for your hard work on the subdivision ordinance. We'll be coming up for a vote here. I mentioned that you'll work together in a respectful way. Sometimes this board had issues with, as I was a member of this board in years past. And I think y'all came up with some good solutions, and I hope the county is able to pass what y'all recommended to them. And it will be coming up again at our next meetings. I appreciate y'all's hard work. The county does as well. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Next meeting?
July the 18th. And I'm sorry, Bobby, again. Mike, sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
That was a last minute change though, wasn't it?
What happened was, we got scheduled over in this meeting room. We had to move down there. Well, they turned out at 2 o'clock so we could have it back. So I went out lunchtime. Hopefully, I tried to call a couple of you. I didn't have your number, but sorry.
I got your email, I was just late.
Okay.
It's my fault for
But
my
late, not
late.
bad. 18th, 4 o'clock, same place.
What's going to be the agenda of the 18th?
We'll pick up the discussion
On the sign ordinance or the floodplain ordinance?
If there's an update from the commissioners, we would discuss the
Yeah,
floodplain.
there's a good chance we'll have it, because we should have a meeting before y'all.
When's the
We
next
should know
meeting?
something.
The 9th. That's our, the 9th will be your public hearing for the subdivision ordinance. At 6 o'clock at the courthouse.
Yeah, and I can tell you that just from the last couple of meetings, the commissioners are antsy to kind of get that one done one way or the other and move forward, get off the plate, so to speak. So we just didn't see it as being necessarily efficient to make a change or do something and task our county employees with doing something different or keep it the same. The state might change it, and then a month from now, we gotta go back and retask it and doing something different.
Jimmy probably going to get it. Jimmy to good.
Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Oh, you can have it.
Everybody's on, ain't I?
Down here, right?